Hey guys, this is Justin from Black Module Studio. Today I'm going to go ahead and continue our Unity tutorial series and show you guys how to do a minor optimization. So we're going to occlude some of our voxels. So essentially the voxels that should not be able to be seen by the player just because they're covered by other blocks or voxels. We're going to make it just so we occlude those so we don't have to worry about them. Then after that we'll go ahead and add a few more things such as voxel types and like dirt or stone, and then we'll go ahead and add some materials to our voxels. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Let's pop open Unity here. First things first, I'm just going to duplicate this scene to make scene 6, and then I'm going to go in here, create a new folder, tutorial 6. Alright. Now, let's see. Where should we start? First off, I guess we will go ahead and go into the chunk class. And what we're going to do is we're going to want to create a new function that is called check neighbors, because we're going to be checking the neighbor of each voxel to see what type it is and whatnot. So let's go ahead and need that. We'll go ahead and after the for loop, we'll go ahead and call check neighbors, and we'll make it private. It's not going to return anything. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to loop through this loop. We can't do it inside here because this is building the voxels and we need to check after all the voxels are built. So unfortunately we can't just do this within that loop. It's not a big deal though. Alright, so what we're going to want to do is we'll create a boolean that we'll call setActive, and we'll set it to false. So by default we're going to deactivate any blocks. And then we're basically going to loop through and check which one should be active. So first off, we're going to go and check the left. So we're going to say if I does not equal 0, we're going to go in here, and that's so that we don't want to go outside of the bounds of our three-dimensional array within our chunk. Later on, when we add more chunks, we're going to do it slightly different, but just for our purposes here, we only have the one chunk. So, alright, so if I is equal, it does not equal 0, so as in it is, we are not all the way to the left of our chunk, then we're going to check if voxels I minus 1 jk dot type, which we will add later, is equal to 0. Actually, we may have already added it, I don't remember. And so basically if the type is 0, which for right now is just going to represent like an error block, or like a transparent block for the time being. If the type is basically a block that can be seen through, if the type is 0, then we do want to, oops, what did I do? There we go. We want to set the boolean setActive equal to true, because that voxel should be true then. Alright, and then what we'll do an else out here, so as in this is on the far left of the chunk, we want to also setActive to true, so that that block will be visible. And then basically we copy this for all 6 sides. So we've got our check left. Now we're going to check right. And we'll say if I is less than width minus 1. And this will be I plus 1 right here. Oops. And there we go, that's the right. Alright, so left, right, and then we'll go ahead and do the bottom. This is going to be j minus 1. do the top. Oops. Let's go make that a J. This will be J plus 1. It's J less than height minus 1. Alright. Now we will check the front. Say if k does not equal 0. Say k minus 1 right here. And then the back is going to be k is less than depth minus 1. That's one right there. Alright, so now we're going through and we are setting active to true, as in we want the block to be true if it is either on the outside of our chunk or if a block next to it is essentially type 0, which is essentially our air block. Otherwise, it's going to be false because it'll never enter any of those statements. So what we want to do down here then, at the end of our function, is we want to say if not set active. So if set active is false, then we will say voxels ijk dot is active, which is going to be a function that we'll create, and we'll set it to false. So basically we're going to set our if our voxel is active to false. Alright, and then we'll do else voxels ijk dot is active, set it to true. So that way if a transparent block is basically on the outside of it, or if it's on the outside of the chunk, it'll remain active. Because later we're going to call this function from the update function. That way, you know, if blocks are deactivated or destroyed, then we can go ahead and, you know, set them as such. So now what we'll need to do is we'll go ahead and create an update function. So we'll say public void update. And remember, since our class chunk is not does not inherit from mono behavior, this is just our own function, but we're going to call it from within our worldgen's update function. So in here, all we're going to do is call our check neighbors function, just on every loop. That way, again, you know, if blocks change, then it'll update. All right. So now that we've got our chunk completed, now we're going to have to go into Voxel. Now Voxel we are actually going to change to be Voxel Mesh, because that's all this really is. It's the mesh. It's the mesh filter, the mesh render, the mesh collider, but it is not actually representative of our voxel. It's not, you know, it's not the type. So we'll create a different voxel class to house that. So we'll change that to Voxel Mesh, and then I will need to go to Unity, change it in here as well. Where's rename? There we go, Voxel Mesh. Alright. Let's go and open that back up. And let's see. So we are going, since we're going to be setting this active and whatnot, we will need to have access to the game object. So we're going to set that to public. And then what we'll want to do actually is we are going to pass in a type. That way we can determine the material. So we'll say byte type, and we'll just pass it right through to here. Oops, there we go. And then right here, we're going to create a switch statement. So we'll say switch type. We'll say case 0, then break out of that. We're going to copy this a few times. We'll have an error block for 0, say dirt, stone, and then we'll just do our default in case there's an error. So we'll log a warning. Oop. Log warning, type not available using default material. Alright, so make sure this is 2 and 1. And then what we're going to do in here, set our material. So that's going to be the default. And then right here we're going to want air, what I say, grass, or well, I think dirt I said, and then stone. Now we have our different materials, but we're going to need to create those. So we will pop up in Unity, we'll go into our resources, materials, and we will create a new material, and we will call this air. Create another material, call it dirt, and then create one more, and we will call it stone. Alright, so let's go and open up an image editor. I use paint.net. It's free and pretty easy to use. As long as it exports to PNG, then any image editor that you use will pretty much do. I just want to use some transparency, so we'll do 32 by 32. Let's get rid of that white background, and actually this one right here will be fine. Go here and resources, we'll go and create a new folder, we'll call it textures, and eventually we'll probably make a texture atlas just to save on draw calls, but right now we're not doing too many optimizations, we're just getting the base engine up. So this was going to be air, so it's just transparent, and then I'll go ahead and paint on a brown texture. Let's go ahead and adjust this a little bit. Paint that. It's kind of red a little, isn't it? Okay. And then we'll go ahead and add some noise to it. Turn the color saturation down. We just want the browns. Come on. There we go. And a little too intense. Let's go ahead and cut that back a little. Looks alright. Now I'll go ahead and save this as dirt. Alright. And let's go and do the same thing with some stone. These are obviously very sloppy textures, so you know, you can change up however you need. But this is what I'm going with. Alright. So now that we have those textures in there, now we can go to air. We'll set our textures, air, and dirt. Oop, that was default. Let's undo that. Here's dirt. And then stone. Alright, now let's go and go into our textures. And we kind of want a pixely look, so we're going to set the filter mode to point, and then repeat to clamp, and then we'll apply that. We're going to do that to both these. This is just going to give it that pixelated look. So now when we go back to these and look at them, now it looks a little bit more pixelated. So, but then the final one, air, is just white. We do not want that. We don't want a white cube or whitish gray, because it looks a little too much like the default, and in fact actually looks exactly like it. So we'll go into our shaders and go to transparent, diffuse, and there, now it's completely invisible, and there we go. So now we have our materials, and so where were we in the code? Alright, so air, dirt, and stone we've got set. I believe that's it for our voxel mesh. So let's go and close these. We'll go to world gen. World gen, all we're going to do in here is we're going to create our update function. And since this inherits mono behavior, then update's automatically called. But we want to call chunk.update because that is not a mono behavior. And that's how it's going to get called every loop. And that's all we need for that. And now we're going to create a new class or new script in here. And this is going to be called Voxel, which is why we changed the name of our old one. Alright, now Voxel is not going to inherit from mono behavior, so we're not going to have these functions at all. Now we are going to have a vector3 if I can spell, vector3 position. We're going to have a voxel mesh object, which we'll call our mesh. We will have a private byte, which is going to be the type. And then let's go and do our getters and setters for this. We'll say get return type, and then set type equals value. There we go. And then now we're going to create our constructor. We'll say public voxel vector3 position byte t, and that'll be the type. So position equals POS, type equals t, and mesh equals new voxel mesh position type. And then we'll say public void. Remember we had that isActive function earlier. Well, now this is where it is, so we're calling it from within the chunk. We're calling this isActive function, and what we want to do is we want to take mesh, which remember in Voxel Mesh we made the game object public, so now we can access it. So game object dot, and this is a Unity function here, set active. This will set the game object itself to be active or not. And that is that. I believe I did miss some things within chunk though, actually. Nope, because we changed the names, this should be good, I believe. Let's go and do a test, see if I missed anything. Console clear. Let's see. Voxel Mesh, line 17. Oh, we forgot to change this to mesh. There we go. And Voxel chunk line 31. Yes, type. Okay. So what we want to do is we'll go ahead and create a byte. We'll just call it type. Set it equal to random dot range. Let's see. Oh, actually, it's going to return an integer, so we got to cast it first to a byte. So random dot range, and we'll just say between 0 and 3. So it's going to return a 0, 1, or 2, which are our types. And then we'll pass that in right there. Alright, hopefully I didn't miss anything else. Alright, there we go. So now if I hit play, alright, so we can see, I'm going to go in here so I can move it around. We can see that we have lots of game objects in here. They're using different materials. And I'm not sure, do we have anything? Yeah, there's only a few, because some of these are air, it's the transparent type. Our mesh isn't quite big enough to have big, large sections that are missing, but this mesh right here is, or sorry, not missing, occluded. That one is occluded. But yeah, so it's occluding any of them that should not be visible. So like I said, it's a minor optimization, but you know, it is a start. It'll be pretty big later on. Let's go ahead and bump up this size to 25, and we'll see. Alright, so now we can see we have a larger terrain here. Lots of these game objects. voxels. So it is getting somewhere now. So yeah, 25 is probably a bit large though for a single chunk. Let's go and bump that down to 16. Alright, so now we'll hit play. And we will... Yeah, so that is 4,096 cubes, or voxels. It's not a massive amount, but that could be one chunk, and with further optimizations we could have multiple chunks in here. So yeah. There's different optimizations we could do. We could actually break it down so that rather than rendering an entire cube, we only actually build out the faces that should be visible. So such as this cube right here, we only build this top face, and then this side face over here. Yeah, not the bottom one either because it's on a block. So yeah, so that's an optimization we can do. To help reduce draw calls, we can go ahead and do a texture atlas and share materials. There's also the option of building this entire chunk as one single mesh. That's a little bit more complex, but that's a possible optimization we could do. So we could do some actual space partitioning with our chunks, such as an occ tree, so that we can we don't have to check so many things. That'll come a little later on though, if we go ahead and go that route. So yeah, we're getting there. You can see how this is starting to come along. Yeah. All right. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this and are enjoying this series. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to go ahead and ask me down in the comments section. Also, if you have suggestions or things you'd like to see in future updates, please feel free to let me know. I have more episodes planned, but you know, if there's specific things you guys would like to see, you know, maybe I can kind of transition those into the tutorial series as well. So yeah, thanks.